Hey, it's Giuseppe. That's right. Thank you. And today I wanted to talk about something that has been dominating my social media feeds for almost a month at this point, and that's Michael Jackson. You know, my YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere I turn, it's Michael Jackson. I mean, don't get me wrong, I click on it a lot. So it's part of my algorithm because I am a Michael Jackson fan. Now, on my YouTube page called GR5 Studios, I have my podcast there, and I have a little show, a little segment that I call Me Like Not Like, where I discuss a movie that I may have recently seen and let you know if I like it or not. And originally I was going to do that. I was going to talk about the movie Michael, starring Jafar Jackson, Michael Jackson's nephew. But I feel like if I'm going to talk about Michael Jackson, I'm going to go a little more than just the movie. Because I've spoken about this on my podcast with my buddy Storm, Dude for Real. But I just wanted to get this out also. You know, I was going to just do the review of the movie, let you know what I think about it. But I feel like it's just going to be a little more than just a discussion about the movie. So if I'm discussing Michael Jackson, I'll be discussing Michael, the man, the artist, the entertainer, the legend, and the movie, the music, all of it, as much as I can from a fan's perspective. Let's get that out of the way. I am a fan. I've been a fan since I was a kid. I think I was a fan of Michael Jackson before I could even talk, because I was about 2 years old when Thriller came out, and I remember listening to that album a lot with my older sisters and my younger brother. We listened to that all the time, and I feel like I knew the words to those songs before I could even talk, if that makes sense. You know, it's like you hear sounds, you mimic them. You might not know exactly what you're saying, but you know that you're following what's being said on the record. So I remember being a kid and seeing Michael Jackson on TV, loving him, loving the music. You know, we all did. And it was just such a great time because seeing Michael Jackson on TV always brought this like sense of joy, especially when he was doing the 25th anniversary of Motown and he did the moonwalk. Now, if you were around to see that, and of course, it's all over the internet. You could find it anywhere. You could always just find it. But the moment it happened and seeing it, you know, it was like an event in and of itself. You know, Michael was doing his songs with his brothers to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Motown, but he insisted on doing one of his own songs. So he did Billie Jean. He danced, he sang, the crowd went nuts, and then he did the moonwalk, and the crowd went wild. It was one of the most amazing things anybody had ever seen at that point. Then he spun around and landed on the tips of his toes, like not just his tippy toes, but like the tips, you know, like ballerina stuff, you know, and it was wild. It was insane. So for years, from the time that Thriller came out, up until Bad came out, it was that album, and it still reigns as the highest selling album of all time with about 65 million copies worldwide, which that's a lot, you know, because people are still buying it now, believe it or not. You could just go on Spotify or Apple Music and listen to it, but there are people who still appreciate physical media, physical copies of the albums. I mean, I would say maybe like 10, 12, somewhere between 10 and 12 years ago, I repurchased some of the albums on vinyl. I had the Thriller album on vinyl as a kid. I think we wore it out and we had to get another one, but I bought my own copy. I think I got the 25th anniversary of that. I got the 25th anniversary of Bad, you know, because I'm a Michael Jackson fan. You know, it didn't need the movie to come out to want to have all of that Michael Jackson stuff because I love his music and I always loved what he did. So back to childhood, loving Michael Jackson, loving everything that he does. We would listen to Michael Jackson all the time. We would rent. There was a video out, The Making of Thriller, the whole movie, where it starts where he's on a date at the movie theater. You know, it starts with the werewolf movie where Michael Jackson turns into a werewolf. And then it pans out to him in the theater with his girlfriend. Then the whole thing happens where he's walking down the street singing to her. And then he joins a group of zombies and just dances. At the time, you know, there were certain things about that video that scared me, but I was so compelled to watch it. It actually sparked my love of not just horror movies, but zombie movies. You know what I mean? Like, I love George Romero flicks. Dawn of the Dead is my favorite Dead movie. It always will be. The remake was good too, but the George Romero one is, to me, is just perfection when it comes to Dead movies. We would rent that all the time because back in the day, we had these things called, if you don't know, if you're not from that time, we had these things called VHS tapes. That's how we watched movies. It was before DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K, all that stuff, and movies were on film inside a cassette. And they had stores you could go to rent them for a couple of days. You had to bring it back and rent it again if you like, which is what we did a lot. You know, it was on TV from time to time, but we would just rent it because we loved it. And we loved Michael Jackson. I mean, Michael Jackson went big with like everything with his videos. When it came to Thriller, he had Jonathan Landis direct it. You know, when it came to the Bad video, it was Martin Scorsese who directed that. Even when he did the Captain EO movie for Disney, that was Francis Ford Coppola, and he co-wrote it also with George Lucas. Spike Lee did They Don't Care About Us. For Remember the Time, he had John Singleton do it. So like Michael Jackson went big with anything that he wanted to do. When he was putting a project together, it was huge. And he got good directors to do it. I mean, Jonathan Landis put out one of possibly the greatest werewolf movies of all time, and he got him to direct his scary video Thriller. Years later, when Bad came out, I was about 7 years old, and I begged my mom to take me to the store to get it. And she did. Went to get it at the store, and I remember at the time the vinyl was $10. I remember seeing the price tag, $9.99. And we got it, brought it home, and I listened to that record over and over and over again. Here I am, a chubby little 7-year-old doing Michael Jackson dance moves in the kitchen where the record player was every day. And then Moonwalker came out about a year later, the movie. Bought that, watched that over and over because it had like all the stuff, like some of the stuff from when he was a kid up until he became an adult, you know, and then they did the Bad video played by kids. But the thing was, when that Bad video premiered on TV, much like anything that Michael Jackson did, it was an event. Whenever Michael Jackson put out a video, it was an event. Like, it wasn't just on MTV, it was on regular TV. Like, I remember when Black and White came out. I remember when Bad video came out. It was a big thing. It's like the new premiere Michael Jackson video, because there was always like a short movie before the actual video started. And that was always awesome. And we always tuned in, and it was always what we talked about the next day. I'll never forget talking about Black and White the next day when he was in the alley, breaking up the car, breaking windows, all that stuff. And, you know, if you were there, you remember what he was doing when he was dancing on top of the roof of the car. You know, I actually got in trouble for mimicking that move in school the next day, but it was Michael Jackson. So that Bad album to me it's my favorite Michael Jackson album. Bad to me is a perfect album. Thriller's a perfect album, but Bad to me is the perfect album. It is my perfect album because every song on that album is awesome. I mean, like, there's songs like Speed Demon that not many people really talk about. Because even in the Moonwalker video, there was like a little mini video where, you know, he's disguised as this like claymation rabbit running away from fans, and then all of a sudden he puts the suit down, he puts the costume down. This cartoon rabbit gets up, starts dancing, and they have a little dance off right before they go into the video for Leave Me Alone, which at the time when I was a kid was not on the record. I mean, it's still not on like the regular release record. You could get it on the 25th anniversary record or on the CD. But at the time in the 80s, not everybody had a CD player. And I knew just getting the record was enough. And, I knew that I could not talk my mother into getting a CD player just so I could get a CD just to get the one song. But we did have a VCR. I did have Michael Jackson's Moonwalker on VHS. So anytime Leave Me Alone came on, I could watch it. And I can rewind it, which I did a lot. Because again, I love that movie. That's actually my favorite song from the album. Before I heard it, it was Smooth Criminal, and that was even before the video came out. When I heard it, I thought that song was so cool. It was so awesome. Then when the video came out, you know, it was like different. It was a little extended. Some of the parts were in different areas of the song, you know, like the guy with the bullhorn wasn't on it. but then they put out a version where it was. One of the truly wild things about Moonwalker was that the big bad guy in the movie was a character named Mr. Big, played by Joe Pesci. Now, at the time, 7 years old, I didn't know who Joe Pesci was. I didn't know what kind of an actor he was. I didn't know anything about him. But then years later, Home Alone came out and he's the bad guy in that. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know that dude somewhere. And then I've realized that he was Mr. Big in Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. And I always kind of wondered what that interaction was like, what the two of them on screen together, just if they had any kind of conversations. Because right now, while Michael Jackson's the biggest thing, again, I'm coming upon all these videos of other celebrities talking about Michael Jackson, their time with him, time they spent with him. One of my favorites is listening to Chris Tucker talk about it. I love when he's talking about when Chris Tucker is talking about Michael Jackson. His stories are the best. But there are so many celebrities coming out talking about what it was like the first time they met Michael Jackson, hanging out with Michael Jackson, even just talking to Michael Jackson on the phone. And it's great. I love every minute of it. But I would so much love to hear what it was like for Joe, like what it was like being in a room with Joe Pesci and Michael Jackson at the same time. And another thing I loved about that movie was at the very end, after Michael Jackson saved the day, he went out on stage and he did his version of the Beatles' Come Together. Now, I'm a fan of the Beatles. Not as big of a fan of the Beatles as I am Michael Jackson, but I loved his version of Come Together. It's probably my favorite version. I mean, there are three that I know of for sure, which is the Beatles, Michael Jackson, and Aerosmith. Out of the three, Michael Jackson's is my favorite. And whenever I was in a band, I would always suggest covering that song. And I've been in two bands where we did cover that song. It was kind of my way of doing like a Michael Jackson cover, even though it is a cover itself. I always love that song. I love the way Michael Jackson does. I love the Aerosmith version. I love the Beatles version, but there's something about the way Michael Jackson did it, just different. And it was so much more fun. And it was Michael. So that was like my little way of like giving a tribute to Michael Jackson in my band without telling my band. So, hopefully they don't see this and they'll be like, oh, that's what he was up to. I mean, obviously the cat's out the bag at this point, but that's one of the reasons that I wanted to cover that song, because I always loved Michael Jackson's version of it. And at the time, it wasn't on any record. It wasn't on any album. It didn't come out later on until I think History or His Story, however you want to pronounce it. That ending with him playing that song was just great. And I thought it was awesome. And I'm glad that now I could find it, anywhere to listen to. Again, much like Leave Me Alone at the time, if I wanted to hear it, I would just rewind the scene and watch it again. It just goes to show what a fan I was. I still am. This whole resurgence of Michael Jackson is really awesome to me. Like, I love that this is happening because I always loved his music, and I'm glad that it's making a comeback. But the thing is, it's making a comeback, but it's not just the people who loved him then, it's people who love him now. Because I'm seeing videos of like little kids dancing to his music. One kid was crying that, when he found out that he couldn't meet Michael Jackson because he wasn't alive. Kids mimicking the dances, doing all that stuff. And it's great. To me, it's awesome because a lot of people will say, well, Michael Jackson has fans that aren't even born yet. It's true. Michael Jackson is the biggest artist, the biggest entertainer, the biggest star on the planet, dead or alive. Because right now, because of the movie, there's a huge resurgence, and he is the number one streamed artist on the platforms, on the streaming platforms. That's amazing. You know what I mean? This is 17 years after he passed away. And Thriller is the number one streamed album 43 years after it released. I mean, that just goes to show you what a big star he is, because I see a lot of these posts come up where it's like, hey, who's a bigger star, Taylor Swift or Michael Jackson? And it's Michael Jackson. Right now, he is the top streaming artist, and he's not even alive. He's been gone for 17 years. That's a long time to have this resurgence. And he is now 6 decades where he has hit the Billboard charts. 7, if you include I Want You Back, which hit number 1 when it released in 1969. So, I mean, that was with the Jackson 5. You could count it. You could not. It's up to you. I say he belongs. I say it's 7 decades for Michael at number 1, but here's Michael Jackson on the Billboard charts, 17 years after passing, 43 years after Thriller released. And then Dangerous came out, which was also a good album. And I kind of lost touch a little bit with some of the stuff that came out after that. But of course, like I said, the videos were still coming out. The music was still coming out. I know about the hits that were on the MTV, on the radio, like Scream with Janet Jackson. They Don't Care About Us, which was one of those songs where you just kind of like, oh my goodness, Michael's mad, even with Scream, he curses in that. And it's like hearing Michael curse in a song. It's like, was that Michael? Did Michael just say that? I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I could take this. Like even as an adult listening to that, I'm like, man, did he just say a bad word? Even with They Don't Care About Us, because it's like, Michael Jackson in his music a lot. He's always singing about love, singing about trying to change the world, trying to make it a better place. But when They Don't Care About Us came out, he was pissed. Because even in the song Bad, he says, we could change the world tomorrow. It'll be a better place. It's like, this is a song where he's talking about being bad. This is a song where he's talking about like, yo, I could throw down. And then it's like, yo, we could change the world and it'll be a better place. It's like he threw that in there. And then years later, it's like they pushed him to that point where he got pissed. He was angry. He's like, all right, you know what? That's it. They don't care about us. The interesting thing about that is he filmed it. It was filmed in Brazil, but he couldn't get the permits to film. But the people of the area that he was filming in said, no, he's filming here. They blocked the streets off. They did what they had to do to get Michael to film there. It's like everybody got in on it and he had them all in the video, and it's a great song. It's, it's not a feel-good song, but there's definitely feeling there. There's definitely emotion. There's definitely a lot of heartfelt and angry feelings in that song, and you could hear it in his voice. And one of the other things that I always found interesting about hearing about Michael Jackson is that if he were recording something and it didn't come out exactly perfect, and he was asked to redo it, he would say no, because the emotion that was exuded doing that song, doing that portion of the song, he says, no, leave that in, because that's how I felt at that moment, and that needs to be there. That's one of the great things about Michael. And it's like he was a perfectionist, but there were certain things that may have hit certain emotional feelings for him that he said, no, keep that in, because life's not perfect. Not everything's perfect. And, when you talk about emotion, it's like when you listen to She's Out of My Life off the Wall, and he's crying at the end of that, it's like, you feel that, man. Especially like now, like I still listen to it and it's in my headphones. It's like, I feel that. It's like he's crying in my ears, and it's like, Michael, I know how you feel, man. Michael, I feel it too, And he was just that kind of an artist, the kind of an artist where like the second he stepped out onto the stage, the crowd is going wild. Like almost to the point where like you can't even hear him. People go nuts. People were fainting in the audience. Like people were fainting just at the sight of him. And, it was really a really funny video where he's doing some kind of press conference. He's at a podium and he realized that every time he moved, a picture was being taken of him. So he's like moving his hand, he's moving his head. And it was funny, but that's just what it was. It was like, no matter what he did, he could just take one step. People would go nuts. He was just that kind of an artist. He was just that kind of a performer. He just had that aura. And I never got to see him live, and I wish I did. I really do wish I did. That would have been one of those once in a lifetime things. It would have been one of those great things. I might not have made it out alive because I probably would have fainted and gotten trampled, but it definitely would have been an experience. It would have been a hell of an experience. I've seen a lot of great bands in my life, but I feel like seeing Michael Jackson is something that I definitely missed out on. Seen a lot of live videos, a lot of live performances of him, just never actually there. And I'll never forget that night. I was on my way to band practice with my guitarist, my dad's old, like 1987 Nissan Sentra 2-door, no CD player, no tape deck, just radio. And while we're on our way to band practice, the news came on the radio that Michael Jackson had passed away, age 50. And like everything just came crashing down. It was like, like the beginning of Smooth Criminal, like that heartbeat, like that's all I felt, like that's all I heard. And I can tell you if my guitarist was even saying anything to me because like it was just such a big blow. Like the news was just so crushing. I was like, wait a minute, Michael Jackson's dead? Really? Like he's dead? It was like the world came crashing down. Like a huge part of my life, like my childhood, just all of a sudden just gone. It was unexpected. You know, the king of pop just gone. It just it felt so unreal for the and like you know for the rest of the radio show they just they basically like made the rest of the night like a tribute to Michael Jackson. They even had like other artists call in and like you know sharing memories, discussing the whole situation, and it was just like you know it was just a big thing because it was just one of the saddest times because like even though like at the time I may not have been like really listening to Michael, it was the fact that he was gone and it just changed a lot because it was like the world stopped, you know. And but that's you know because that's the kind of impact Michael Jackson had. That was the kind of artist that he was, you know. And it's like they even say it numerous times like throughout the movie that he's you know like how special he is and how great he is and he could be the biggest star in the world and you know obviously that's really what happened. It's like he's gone but you know, of course, his music and you know everything he did is going to live on forever. You know, because legends don't truly die, and Michael Jackson is truly a legend, and he will definitely live on. His music will definitely live on, and it's going to be passed down for generations. But I will say, now that the movie is out, it really brought back a lot of what I felt as a kid watching and listening to Michael Jackson, because his nephew Jafar did such a great job. Now you look at him, you know, of course, he doesn't look exactly like him, but the makeup they used and how they, you know, made him look as much like Michael Jackson as they could. There were a lot of spots where he looked exactly like him, especially when he wore the glasses because he had the hair, you know, and the glasses really did it. But there were certain points in the movie where his movements were perfect, you know, especially like toward the end. And there might be some spoilers, but if you don't know the story of Michael Jackson up until 1988, I don't know what to tell you because that's where the movie ends. And it says at the end that he'll return, that his story will continue. Toward the end, when they did the Jackson's Victory Tour and he was doing Human Nature, the movements were so exact. You know, like the little head shake, the little point, like just every move that he did, and even like the look on his face while he was doing it, it was so accurate. Because as a fan, like as any fan would, they study his movements. You know, I've studied his movements, not studied like writing down, but it's like I've watched them closely because being a fan and watching all those videos over and over, the movies over and over, you kind of get to know how this guy moves because you're just so in awe of him. And it's like every little thing that he does and every little thing that Jafar did to recreate that was magic. That's why people are going nuts for this movie because he portrayed Michael so well, almost to the point where it's like, oh my God, that's Michael. Some theaters, people are dancing, some people are singing. I seen it twice at this point. The second time I went, people were more into it. People were like singing. Not that they weren't into it the first time, but because I went opening weekend and saw it in IMAX. And I feel like the first time people seeing it, they were like kind of in awe. And like when it just went on and I saw it, I think during the third weekend it was out, people started clapping, people are singing, people are like really getting into it. And I was into it too. You know, it's like if people are doing it, it's like, hey, I saw it already, so I'm not going to miss anything. I mean, I already have the Blu-ray on pre-order so I can watch it by myself when it comes out December 31st, but I can watch it without any outside noise, without anybody, without any interruptions, which is what I want to do because I still love Michael Jackson. I still love his music, but the movie I thought was really good. You know, I think a lot of people might not have appreciated that they didn't go like super deep into, you know, Michael Jackson's psychology. They showed him as the person that we wanted to see, the sweetheart who was good to kids, the nice guy, the artist, the guy who wanted to be the biggest star in the world and achieved exactly that because he was just that good. Everybody loved him for a reason. He was just fantastic. Like I said, I still listen to his music. When I hear his song on the radio, I'm still into it. There's nothing that's ever going to shake the fandom of a Michael Jackson fan. The music, the feeling that we had when we would see him live on TV, because like I said, Michael Jackson was an event. If you knew he was going to be at some award ceremony, you were watching, waiting for him. When he did the Super Bowl, I don't care about football. I remember when the Super Bowl halftime shows actually meant something and Michael Jackson was on. And I loved it because, again, if you're a Michael Jackson fan and you saw that performance, it was incredible. Anytime he would move, anything that he does, everybody went nuts for him, men and women alike. One of the things about Michael Jackson and his music is that he says it's for everybody. It's not for one group of people. Nobody is excluded. His music's for everybody, and everybody loves his music. Anywhere in the world, he's known. Because there are certain celebrities who can go out of their house. You know, they might get mobbed. They might get people walk up to them and ask them for autographs. People might go crazy. But if Michael went out, he could not go out by himself. If Michael Jackson was at a hotel and people found out about it, that whole street was filled with people outside of his hotel room waiting for him just to come out and wave. All he had to do was walk out and wave and people would go insane. He was just that kind of a person, that kind of a celebrity, that kind of a star, that kind of an entertainer. And the movie, the Michael movie, it was about 2 hours, 10 minutes, I believe. Of course, I want to see more. You know, there was a lot of it in, you know, the Jacksons, The American Dream, the made-for-TV movie that came out years ago. And that was great. And it's hard to find now. You know, you can find it on YouTube, but it's a really terrible copy. You know, it's very old and very grainy and just like, you know, it's so like you can't even like make people's faces out because it's such a bad, like there's no upscaling to it. And it's like you can't buy it anywhere. If you do, I think it came out on DVD. You have to go on like eBay to buy it or something now at this point. But, you know, because like that was about the whole family. This focused more on Michael. And again, there's going to be a sequel to it, which I'm looking forward to because I love this movie because it was made for the fans. It was made for the people who love Michael Jackson. And I'm one of them. So I wanted to just do a review of the movie. But again, I knew that I couldn't talk about the movie. And I spoke about this a little bit on my podcast with my buddy Storm called Dude for Real. Sorry for the shameless plug. But I will say this. I enjoyed the movie. I liked it a lot. I went to the theater to see it twice. I already have the Blu-ray on pre-order, which doesn't come out until the end of the year. I have the soundtrack, even though I've heard the songs that are on the soundtrack numerous times, and I have the albums that they're on. And just because it's part of the movie, you know, it's like, it's the movie. This is the movie soundtrack. It's like basically a greatest hits record. And it's not so unlike another, I have the number ones record. It's not too unlike that one, but it's a different greatest hits record. So it's like, all right, I feel like listening to these sets of songs. So I'm going to put on the Michael soundtrack. I want to listen to these set of songs. I'm going to put on number one. You know what? I feel like listening to the Bad today. And I have the Bad, like I said, like 10, maybe 12 years ago, may have been 10. I purchased the 25th anniversary of Bad record, which is like a 4-record set. You know, it's got some demos on it. I think that even has the Spanish version of I Can't Stop Loving You. And it has Leave Me Alone. And it has like other songs on it that weren't on the album, but it's not, you know, it's obviously not the Bad that I remember, but it was like also kind of weird having Leave Me Alone on the record. I also have the picture disc of it. And I want to go through the records at my parents' house because I got to find the original Bad that I had when I was a kid. Because I know it's there. I saw it not too long ago. I need it. Because I don't want to buy another one of those. You know, I don't really play the picture discs much. I usually just keep the picture discs as a, just as a collector item. I do listen to them once in a while if they're only available on picture disc, but that was more for my collection. Same thing with Thriller and Off the Wall. I have the I have the picture discs of those too. So there's that. Dangerous, I think even Invincible. So I'm all about it. But like I bought them years ago, and I didn't wait for a movie to come out to buy all of Michael Jackson stuff, because it was about like 12, maybe 10, yeah, about 10 years ago I started purchasing records and got a record player. So at that point I'm like, oh, you know what I need? I need Michael Jackson. I need Michael Jackson records. And I bought as many as I could at the time because I wanted Michael Jackson records. And when I saw that 25th anniversary bad with Leave Me Alone on it, please, cart, send it to me. Thank you. And I'll take the picture disc as part of my collection. Thank you. I just love that album. Beginning to end, front to back album. Totally. I still put that album on front to back. I remember when I actually did get a CD player, and I bought the Bad album on CD, but that was like years later. And I'm like, oh, wait, I got to get this. Because at the time it was like $10. I was like, yeah, I got to get it. I got to listen to it, Leave Me Alone. This was before streaming, though, where you could just look up the song and you could listen to it whenever and wherever you want. But a lot of my great memories are in my parents' kitchen as a kid, listening to Elvis, listening to Michael Jackson, dancing to either one of them, but just being like in love with Michael's music, being in love with Michael Jackson, loving everything that he put out and just wanting everything that he had. I mean, like I had a Michael Jackson microphone that we hooked up to the radio that we were able to sing through. I had one of the figures. I had a poster in my room. We all had t-shirts. Michael was just the man. He is the greatest. He is a legend. And they say legends never die, because his music is going to live on forever. And he said it himself, the way we might listen to Mozart or Beethoven. It's like that music is immortal, is the word that he used. 17 years after his passing, 43 years after the album came out, and he's at number one. There's a reason for that. Again, people say there are Michael Jackson fans who aren't even born yet. And that's true, because I'm seeing videos of 3-year-olds doing the Michael Jackson dancing, crying for Michael Jackson on the video screen. People crying, watching Michael, seeing Jafar, someone who isn't even Michael Jackson, who looks just like him in the movie, crying for Jafar Jackson. It's an amazing thing. And I also got to say, this kid, Giuliano Valdi, the kid who played young Michael Jackson, he did a fantastic job also. Because you're watching this kid and you're like, oh my God, that's little Michael singing his heart out, dancing his heart out. And even seeing him in like interviews, like TV spots, talk shows, and he starts dancing, he starts doing Michael Jackson dancing. Kid's phenomenal. Kid's got the moonwalk down. It's like Jafar has it. This kid has it. These kids are great. Like, they're awesome. They did such an amazing job in this movie. I love the movie. I might see it again in the theater. I don't know. I might do it. Because right now, there really isn't anything else in the theater that I want to see. And I love going to movies. I love going to horror movies. But like right now, there are no horror movies that I want to see, because right now I'm in Michael Jackson mode. I am following Michael Mania, Michael Madness, whatever you want to call it. I'm here for it. And I'm happy about it. I'm enjoying it. Because again, this resurgence is such an amazing thing, because he's all over social media. And it makes me wonder what Michael Jackson's social media would be like right now. Like, if Michael Jackson were alive and he had his own social media, it would be insane. He would definitely be the most followed person on any platform. Like, he could do like a 3-second video of him just waving at the camera and he'd get like 1 billion likes. There's no question about that. So I just wanted to get this out because, it's more than just the movie. It's the music. It's the legend. It's the dancing. It's just the feeling that we get when we saw Michael Jackson on screen. Again, he was an event. Whenever he had a new video coming out, it was a big thing, bigger than any other artist that I have ever seen. They did not promote a video for any other artist the way they did for him. I mean, there are big artists that they'd be like, hey, we got a new video from this artist coming out tomorrow. We got a new video. But with Michael Jackson, it was an event. It was a big thing. It was a thing that people waited for, watched, talked about the next day, talked about the day after that, still talk about today. I remember seeing the bad video on TV and talking about it the next day. I remember seeing the video for Black and White, talking about it the next day. It was just that big. He was just that big. He was just such an event. Michael is the biggest, the greatest entertainer of all time. And there's no disputing that. I don't think you can dispute that. And with that said, if you got some Michael Jackson on your phone, on your turntable, in your cassette player, and your CD player that you're going to listen to it. Remember, love it. Keep loving it. Remember what it did to you the first time you heard some of those songs. Remember the magic and keep the magic alive. Thank you. Hey, it's Giuseppe. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and on YouTube at Geo5 Studios. I really appreciate the support, and thank you so much.